Hello, everyone. Welcome to my live on my carnivore update as it pertains to women and weight loss. So, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Kelly Keelan, and I help women over 40 lose weight. And I have used the carnivore diet for some of my clients. Now, I want to preface by saying I don't only promote it as a weight loss avenue. It's a tool or it's something that I use for clients who are interested in it. So, this video is not to necessarily promote the carnivore diet for weight loss, but it is for the purpose of just sharing the information that I have gotten from my clients over the past few years. So it's going to be just very casual and laid back. And I have some notes here that I've just taken over the past few years on how it's worked. So feel free to ask questions and in the chat box, and I'd be happy to answer them. So I have experimented with the carnivore diet myself too. I wanted to add that. And I have several videos here on YouTube about my experience with carnivore and what it's done for me and why I did it. And so I will put the links to those in, otherwise you can just search my name, and I have several videos on the carnivore diet. For those of you who don't know what the carnivore diet is, I think most of you probably do, but it is where you only eat animal products. So it's primarily meat, but it also includes eggs and dairy as well. But there are different variations of the carnivore diet. So some people just eat meat, some people just eat beef, some people include all the other things as well, the dairy and the eggs. So there's a lot of different ways to use it. Now, it became pretty popular a few years ago. And so I think what happened, as with all new diets that come up, is that everybody just wants to jump on the bandwagon and try something new because it's exciting and it's flashy and it's something new. And I think a lot of women did that to use as something that they could try for weight loss, just kind of like we do with keto and low fat back in the day. And we're all guilty of that, myself included. And a lot of women had success from it as far as weight loss goes, don't get me wrong, but a lot of women too ended up gaining weight from it as well. So there was a lot of confusion out there amongst the people that follow me. Should I do it? Should I not? Does it cause weight loss? Does it cause weight gain? And so there was just a lot of confusion out there. And so a lot of my clients were asking me about it. So one thing I want to talk about in this video is some of the pitfalls that have happened. So the clients that I have had that have tried the carnivore diet who weren't successful with it, I want to talk about why that was. And I'm going to talk about the ones that were successful and why they were successful too. So one thing that I think a lot of women do is they see somebody on social media who got weight loss results from it, and they automatically just kind of jump into it without really educating themselves on what the carnivore diet does and why some people lose weight or not. They don't understand the science behind the carnivore diet. They don't understand the kind of the mindset that you have to have around it, and they just kind of blindly jump into it, and that usually does not work. And I know it's tempting and it's kind of sexy just to jump into something, but typically those clients, it does not work for. So what a lot of women do, because my clients are 40 years or older, so perimenopausal and menopausal, is they like to use the term, I want to do carnivore to balance my hormones. And they say that and they really don't even know what that means. They heard it somewhere and they really don't fully understand the science. So what does that mean when you say, I want to do the carnivore diet to balance my hormones? Which hormones are you talking about? Because if your sex hormones, if your estrogen and progesterone are low because you're perimenopausal or menopausal, there is no amount of carnivore diet that is going to bring those back up, because it's not, your low hormones are not related to your diet. So that's one thing to understand, because if your body is in perimenopause or menopause, that's what your body is doing. It's not a part of what you're eating or not eating. Now, if you are a woman who has estrogen, let's say you, for example, you are a woman who has a lot of estrogen dominance, maybe because you have a lot of extra body fat and you're having some symptoms because of this estrogen dominance, maybe some weight gain issues, then perhaps going on the carnivore diet will allow you to decrease some of that estrogen dominance and bring your hormones to a more optimal level for you. So there are certain situations where it might balance your hormones, but you have to understand your own hormones first to be able to determine if that is going to be the case for you. So it's really important, and that's what I work with my clients, is let's look at your hormones and see, is a carnivore diet something that is going to balance your particular hormone profile? So it's very individualized, and it's very important to educate yourself on that. Some people, okay, let me back up a little bit. The carnivore diet, this is another misconception that women have. The carnivore diet is not a weight loss diet. And that's another thing that a lot of women get confused about. The carnivore diet, all it is just a way of eating, and it's not necessarily a weight loss diet. Do some people lose weight when they eat only meat? Yes. It depends where you're starting at when you begin the carnivore diet. So if you are somebody who is a sugar addict and you're eating carbs all day long, and you go to the carnivore diet, yes, you're probably going to lose weight because you're going to lower your insulin. You're going to lower some of that inflammation from all the sugar. And yeah, you are going to lose weight. Now, a lot of women enter the carnivore diet and maybe they have a history of lots and lots of yo-yo dieting and caloric restriction, and maybe their metabolism has downregulated because of all the caloric restriction. Their thyroid is downregulated. And so for them to start eating a bunch of meat, it's very nutrient dense and very healthy, but you may actually end up gaining weight, especially if you're eating in a caloric surplus. So the carnivore diet, once again, this is what I say about all diets, is just because it's a nutrient dense diet doesn't mean it's a weight loss diet. And that is, once again, a misunderstanding that a lot of women have, is that it's not always, just because it's nutrient dense doesn't mean it's going to cause you to lose weight. So you still need to be in a caloric deficit in order to lose weight. And so a lot of women start eating this meat and they're eating 3,000, 4,000 calories of beef and ribeyes and fat and butter. And yes, you're flooding your body with nutrients, but you are also eating in a caloric excess. And those calories have to go somewhere. They don't just disappear on their own. They have to go somewhere. And then they go so they get stored in the form of body fat. And women gain weight and then they're confused and don't know why. And so you still have to understand the science behind it, and knowing that if you're in a caloric excess, you're still going to gain weight. For some women, they may gain weight for a period of time and get their body healthy, get their body healed, get their metabolism upregulated again, and then they may be in a healthier or a more optimal spot to start losing weight. So you may have to go through that phase first. Once again, if you are confused about where you are and where you stand, that's where having somebody like myself help you is extremely beneficial. So I have the information listed below of how you can get a hold of me. But it's, like I said, it's so important to understand this. This is a big one. This is a really big one, is that the other pitfall that a lot of women make, I see this, probably this is the biggest one, is that if you have an unhealthy relationship with food, if you are not in tune with your true hunger and fullness signals, and you go carnivore, you are putting a Band-Aid. You're using the carnivore diet as a Band-Aid for the root cause of why you can't lose any weight in the first place, which is because you have some sort of emotional eating issue, food addiction issue, using food as a tool to numb out, whatever you want to call it. You basically are just transferring. If you were, let's say you were on the keto diet, you couldn't lose weight because you're an emotional eater. And then you just transfer that emotional eating into a new diet, which is the carnivore diet. So we need to be honest with ourselves as to why we're having trouble losing weight in the first place. And if you don't pay attention to your true hunger and fullness, and you do a lot of emotional eating, you're just going to emotionally eat a lot of meat. I see this all the time. Women will just be eating ribeyes all day long, thinking that they're going to lose weight, and they're eating these ribeyes even when they aren't hungry. They're just eating for the purpose of eating. And if you have emotional eating issues, if you have binge eating or food addiction issues, it doesn't matter if it's meat. It doesn't matter how nutrient dense the food is, you can still overeat it. And this is what I see a lot. So before you start the carnivore diet as a tool, as a means for losing weight, get clear with yourself if you have food emotionally eating issues, if you are eating, if you aren't in tune with your true hunger and fullness, that's where you really want to put your focus. And don't use the carnivore diet as a Band-Aid. I see it all the time. The other thing that happens a lot is that women are not consistent enough with it, because we get very, very, very impatient if we don't lose weight immediately. So I have some clients who will literally only try it for maybe 48 to 72 hours. And they don't lose weight, and they throw their hands up and say the carnivore diet doesn't work. If you are giving a diet only 48 hours and you didn't lose weight, and so you're throwing it out, that's absolutely not, it's just jumping the gun. There's no way you can determine if a way of eating is right for you or not if you're only giving it that amount of time. So then once again, the real issue is that you need to do some mind work around, why are you in such a hurry? Why are you so impatient? Why are you only giving a way of eating a couple of days before you're throwing it out? So if you really want to try a new way of eating, if you really want to try the carnivore diet, you need to give it at least 30 days of consistency. So once again, huge, common problem that I see. And if you need help on getting started and how do I do this and what does this look like for me, once again, that's one thing I can help you with. The other thing that I wanted to mention, and then I'm going to start going into some of the benefits of it and who it does work for. What I hear all the time is people say, well, I can't do the carnivore diet because it's too hard. And I have to chuckle when I hear this, because the carnivore diet itself isn't hard. You find an animal product, you find meat, and you eat it when you're hungry, and you stop when you're full. If the food in front of you is not from an animal, then you don't eat it. So really, 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 really simple, crazy simple. What you're really saying when you say the carnivore diet is hard, it's not that the carnivore diet is hard. What you're saying is that you don't want to feel the discomfort of not being able to eat the things that you want, whether that be the sugar or whatever it is. So that's another thing to get really clear about. Don't say the carnivore diet is hard. Say what's hard is feeling the discomfort around only eating, having to feel the emotional discomfort of not being able to have the thing that you want. And the reason it's important to be honest with yourself and say it that way is because you can really take your power back and say, no, I'm actually choosing to, I'm being honest with myself here. I'm choosing that the discomfort is what's hard, not the actual carnivore diet. And then you can kind of make a choice from that place. And there's no right or wrong answer, but just make sure that you are clear with why you're not wanting to do it. And that's another big thing that I help my clients with is let's get honest around what's hard and what's not hard. And it's not eating meat or not eating meat, it's feeling the emotional feelings around it. So another thing too, that a lot of clients, when they say it's too hard, what they really mean is that it's going to be hard to feel the discomfort of possibly being judged by a partner, by a family member, by friends. When they see me eating this way, they're going to judge me. So once again, the feeling of the discomfort of being confronted by family and friends when you're eating this way, that's what's difficult. And so then that's where you can start working. That's what you can start working on instead of just throwing your hands up and saying the carnivore diet is hard. Okay, so that is some of the common mistakes that some of my clients make. And they aren't able to be successful with it for those reasons. And once again, get clear on why you weren't successful. Be honest with yourself. You don't have to stay doing it. Just be honest with yourself as to why it's not working. Okay, so here is where carnivore diet can be successful for weight loss. So I have had a handful of clients that have had amazing success from it, and they all seem to kind of have a common theme about themselves when it comes to being successful with it. So the first thing is that they do the mind work around it. They get their mind in the right place. They are okay with knowing they're going to have to feel some discomfort of possibly being judged. They're okay with having to feel some discomfort of the cravings of wanting other things outside of carnivore. They're very open-minded to feeling those discomforts. And they know that's really where a lot of the work lies. So that's the first part. The second part is they give it consistent time. Even if they don't lose weight in the first week, they understand the science behind it. They understand what's going on in their body. They understand their hormones, and they understand what hormones are going to be maybe corrected through the carnivore diet and which ones won't be. So they have a great knowledge base around the science of it and what their goals are and their insulin and their sex hormones and all of that. The other thing is that's really great about the carnivore diet is it gives you adequate protein. So a lot of women don't eat enough protein, and because not eating enough protein, a lot of times you aren't satiated, then you tend to overeat. So women who really understand that, hey, I probably wasn't getting enough protein, and now really optimizing their protein, a lot of times that is what might have been one of the missing pieces as to why they couldn't lose weight. And so that's a wonderful benefit of going carnivore is you are going to get your adequate protein. The other thing that it does is if you are somebody who really struggles with cravings for sugar or carbs, if you are a binge eater and you need to get a handle on the cravings, the urges, the binge eating, so that you can start really getting clear-headed to do the mind work, the carnivore diet is a wonderful tool to use. Because when you are only eating meat, especially if you're eating maybe more bland meat, you can use that way of eating as a tool to calm down the cravings, the crazy addiction brain, calm all of that down so that you can really start doing the mind work around your food issues. It's almost like going to like an alcohol detox where you need to just kind of be in detox for a while before you can start working on your alcohol addiction. Doing the carnivore diet for some, the severe binge eating food addiction it works. And there's a ton of information out there. I'm sure most of you watching this have probably seen the research on what it can do for food addiction and food issues. So to use that, I've had a handful of clients that have used it for that purpose. The other thing too that kind of goes along with this is that the carnivore diet does wonders for mental health. So if you are a woman who is struggling with anxiety, depression, brain fog, low mood, low energy, doing this way of eating, every single one of my clients who has done this said that they saw huge improvement with their mood. And when your mood and your energy are improved, then you can really focus on doing the other work you need to do to lose weight, whether that be doing more activities, exercise, whether that be having the energy and the motivation to do the mind work. It's wonderful for that reason. And the other thing too that it does is if you are somebody who has a lot of inflammation, weight from all of either the sugar or the carbs, or if you have a lot of inflammation because the foods you were eating were reacting with your body. So even if you were eating vegetables, if those vegetables were reacting, your body was reacting to them, you're carrying a lot of inflammation weight. The carnivore diet is the most healing diet for excess inflammation. So a lot of my clients have lost a lot of inflammation weight by just eliminating everything except the meat. So very, very good for that. And it also lowers your insulin too, which really helps put you into the fat burning mode. So once again, my experience with the carnivore diet is a few years ago, I can't remember how many years ago it was now, several years, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I had a lot of digestive issues. I had a lot of just bloating. I had been eating a lot of vegetables and they just were not serving me anymore. So I was very, very uncomfortable from all my digestive issues. And I was really struggling with cravings as well. And I tried the carnivore diet, not to lose weight in the beginning. I just needed to kind of cure those two issues. And so I had a lot of success with both of those by going carnivore. And I was really, I guess, strict with it in the beginning because I just really wanted to give it the full try, and it served its purpose. And I used it as a tool to heal those things. And then after that was healed and that work was done, I have kind of modified it somewhat. So I do still eat a lot of meat and a lot of animal products, but I incorporate other things into my diet now too. So that's the other thing. A lot of my clients are so black and white thinking that they think that they have to only eat meat, or if they aren't doing that, then they need to go to the other extreme. And what I help my clients do is let's not necessarily put a label on how you're eating, but let's find what works for you. So maybe you want to eat mostly meat, but then there's some other things too that you want to eat that works for you. And so kind of taking a label off of things and just focusing on what's going to work for you is a more beneficial way to look at this approach. So how do you know if you have inflammation? Well, it depends what's causing your inflammation. So for example, some women feel inflammation in their joints. So they just either feel the inflammation, so there's pain in their joints, or they'll see the puffiness. And a lot of times that inflammation is due to possibly food intolerances. So some people notice this inflammation when they eat maybe dairy. They'll notice the inflammation maybe if they have, nightshades. If they just have any sort of food that's going to react with their body. I'm trying to think of some other common ones. Sometimes it's just sugar. And so when they eliminate that food, then either the pain goes away, the swelling goes away. Maybe it's just more systemic inflammation. So they're shedding a lot of water weight. So they'll just, lose it they'll just pee it out and lose a lot of weight that way. So it just depends what's causing your inflammation and then how the inflammation is manifesting. So good question. And once again, I know this can get kind of it's kind of confusing sometimes to know if you should or shouldn't do it or how to go about doing it. How do I, when do I eat? What do I eat? How much do I eat? And it's really not complicated. A lot of times what I think is our brains make it way more complicated than it needs to be. Like I said, it's either you're eating an animal product or you aren't. It's really pretty simple. But if you're still kind of getting confused around things and not for sure if this way of eating is for you, that's where, once again, it's so important to work with somebody. I'm a nurse, and so I understand the medical side of things, but I also understand how to incorporate it, if you choose, to also lose weight. And that was the other thing I wanted to mention too, I have in my notes, is a lot of women what the carnivore diet works for them. They're just doing the macros incorrectly. So maybe you're just eating way too high fat or way too high protein within the carnivore realm, and that's what's keeping you stuck. So that's another thing I can help you with, is how do we need to adjust the macros? And I can't give you a clear answer in this video because it's so individualized. Some women do better with the higher protein, leaner cuts of meat, and other women do better with high fat, more of a high fat, fattier cuts of meat. So it's very, very individualized once again. So overall, it is a wonderful diet for women over 40 who want to lose weight, as long as you are understanding, like I said, the science behind it, the macros. As long as you have the right mindset around it and your head is in the right space and you are open-minded to it and you aren't using it just as a complete band-aid to when the real issue is the emotional eating and having lost touch with your hunger and fullness. So with my clients, I work alongside. We can do the carnivore diet at the same time that we're doing the mind work too. How does milk, cheese, and eggs figure into the carnivore diet? It is considered carnivore, so it comes from an animal. Now, I'll tell you, a lot of women react to dairy, and so they have to cut out the dairy. A lot of people react to eggs too. So a lot of people need to just basically stick with meat. The other thing too is if you aren't losing weight on the carnivore, one of my first suggestions is to cut out the dairy. Number one, because it's so inflammatory, but number two, it's so easy to overeat dairy. So easy to overeat dairy. Another thing that some of my clients say, and this sometimes can be kind of a red flag that you may have emotional eating issues, is they'll say to me, okay, I've been carnivore diet for a week and meat just doesn't sound good anymore. Now, what that usually means 99% of the time is that you just aren't hungry enough to desire the meat. If your body truly, truly is physically hungry, then you're going to open the fridge and you're going to see a hamburger patty or a steak or whatever, and that's going to sound really good. So once again, we need to be honest with ourselves. It's not necessarily that meat doesn't sound good. It's just that you aren't allowing yourself to get truly physically hungry around before you actually decide that you need to eat. So once again, a lot of this is more your relationship with food, your hunger and fullness signals. So if there are no more questions, I'll go ahead and end this live. But like I said, hopefully this kind of gives you some insight on what works, what doesn't work. This is coming from my own experience working with clients who, some of them it worked, some of it didn't. And you have to find what works for you. And I can help you do that. I can help if you want to give the carnivore diet a try. Awesome. I can help you do that. You don't have to do the carnivore diet in order to lose weight. Many of my clients are successful, not doing the carnivore. Does fasting and carnivore go together? Yes. So the beauty of carnivore is that you become fat adapted. because you are lowering your insulin enough to become fat adapted. And as you all know, when you're fat adapted, you automatically you fast without even trying, because you don't need to eat every few hours unless you're an emotional eater. You can be fat adapted and still need to eat every few hours if you're an emotional eater, if you have food addiction issues. But if that is cleared up and you're only eating meat, sometimes some of my clients can just eat one meal a day effortlessly. They can eat carnivore one meal a day effortlessly because they're fat adapted, because the carnivore diet lowered their insulin enough and balanced out their leptin too. So the two kind of go hand in hand by default. So, all right. So if there is no more questions, then I'll go ahead and log off, but feel free, if you're watching this after the live, to comment below. And if you want to find out more about me and my program and how I help women, you can go to my website, which I've linked below. And if you are interested in working with me, go ahead and fill out an application for my program, answer the questions, and then I will get a hold of you. After I review the application, I will get a hold of you about working with me. So, all right. Okay. We'll see you all soon.